we're going to take it back or something very powerful is going to happen. And as far as other things are concerned, as you know, we had a very busy weekend. We're dealing with Israel. We're dealing with Ukraine and Russia. We have meetings and talks scheduled with various parties, including Ukraine and Russia. And I think those discussions are actually going pretty well. The discussions on the Middle East with Israel and various and sundry other countries are progressing. Bibi Netanyahu's coming on Tuesday, and I think we have some very big meetings scheduled.
Mr. President, do you feel that Elon Musk is delivering on his promises to you? Do you feel he's doing a good job right now with
I do. I think Elon's doing a good job. He's a big cost cutter. Sometimes we won't agree with it and we'll not go where he wants to go, but I think he's doing a great job. He's a smart guy, very smart, and he's very much into cutting the budget of our federal government.
Mr. President.
We saw some retaliatory tariffs from Canada.
Say it?
We saw some retaliatory tariffs from Canada. There was a rider in the order. Are you planning to increase the tariffs against Canada?
Well, it could happen. If they do anything, we will. Canada's been very abusive of the United States for many years. They don't allow our banks. Did you know that? Canada does not allow banks to go in. If you think about it, that's pretty amazing. If we have a U.S. bank, they don't allow them to go in. Canada's been very tough on oil, on energy. They don't allow our farm products in, essentially. They don't allow a lot of things in, and we allow everything to come in. It's been a one-way street. We subsidize Canada by the tune of about $200 billion a year. And for what? What do we get out of it? We don't get anything out of it. I love the people of Canada. I disagree with the leadership of Canada. And something's going to happen there. But if they want to play the game, I don't mind. We can play the game all they want. Mexico, we've had very good talks with them. And this is retaliatory. This is retaliatory to a certain extent. Millions of people flowed into our country through Mexico and Canada. And we're not going to allow that. And by the way, we have among the lowest numbers we've ever had of people crossing our border, the lowest numbers since my administration.
Mr. President, you said, so on Truth Social, you said that you were going to cut aid from South Africa. Will you plan to cut aid across other African nations, and why South Africa?
No, it's only South Africa. Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
And on the Fed Chair Jerome Powell, he held rates. What's your reaction to him not changing the rates?
What did you say?
Fed Chair Jerome Powell, the Fed meeting was this week, he held the rates. He didn't cut them.
No, I'm not surprised. I think holding the rates at this point was the right thing to do.
Mr. President, which country will be next on tariffs? Would you consider taxing the UK, for example?
Well, we're going to see what happens. It'll happen. But we're going to, we'll see how things work out. It might happen with them, but it will definitely happen with the European Union. I can tell you that, because they've really taken advantage of us. And, you know, we have over a $300 billion deficit. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products. They take almost nothing. And we take everything from them. Millions of cars, tremendous amounts of food and farm products. So the UK is way out of line, and we'll see. The UK, but European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line, but I'm sure that one, I think that one can be worked out. But the European Union it's an atrocity, what they've done.
Prime Minister Starmer wants a closer relationship with the EU. So
well, Prime Minister Starmer has been very nice. We've had a couple of meetings. We've had numerous phone calls. We're getting along very well. And we'll see whether or not we can balance out our budget. With the European Union, it's $350 billion deficit. So obviously something's going to take place there.
What's your timeline? And are you thinking
Where?
along
Where?
the line 25%?
With who? With who?
The EU, how much?
I wouldn't say there's a timeline, but it's going to be pretty soon. No, I'm not concerned. We may have short-term a little pain, and people understand that, but long-term, the United States has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world. We have deficits with almost every country, not every country, but almost. And we're going to change it. It's been unfair. That's why we owe $36 trillion. We have deficits with everybody. We help everybody. We've been helping everybody for years. And to be honest, I don't think they appreciate it. So we're going to change that. We're going to change it fast. We're going to make America great again. We have to focus on our country. We have tremendous potential if properly used, and we have to focus on our country. Tremendous deficits with China, tremendous deficits with the European Union, tremendous deficits with Mexico and Canada. And why? What's the purpose of that? Why would we have deficits? And you look at, if you look at pharmaceuticals and drugs, if you look at various products, it's much cheaper in other countries. We're not going to allow that much longer. We're not going to take it. Well, it's been run by a bunch of radical lunatics, and we're getting them out. USAID, run by radical lunatics, and we're getting them out, and then we'll make a decision.
Mr. President, have you spoken with anyone from Canada or from Mexico since you appointed?
I've spoken with people from Canada. I've spoken with people from Mexico, and I've spoken to a lot of other people too.
Prime Minister Trudeau or
I'm speaking with Prime Minister Trudeau tomorrow morning, and I'm also speaking with Mexico tomorrow morning. And I don't expect anything very dramatic. We put tariffs on. They owe us a lot of money, and I'm sure they're going to pay.
Would you send troops to take the Canal of Panama?
About what?
Panama, the Canal of Panama. Would you send US troops?
I don't think troops will be necessary in Panama. What Panama has done is terrible for national security for this part of the world. And, 70% of the signage on the Panama Canal was written in Chinese. That's not right. So it wasn't meant for China. It should have never been made. The deal was a ridiculous deal. We lost 38,000 people building the Panama Canal, one of the great wonders of the world. 38, think of it, 38. It was the most expensive project ever built by this country, if you take it forward. The most expensive project ever built. We lost 38,000. And what happens? China owns it all of a sudden? It's not going to happen. We're not going to let that happen. We have national security concerns, and they wouldn't let it happen either.
Mr. President, what does Canada and Mexico need to do for you to lift the tariffs? What are specifically you want?
They'd have to balance out their trade, number one. They've got to stop people from pouring into our country, and we've stopped it. They haven't stopped it. We've stopped it. They have to stop people from pouring in, and we have to stop fentanyl, and that includes China. Fentanyl has killed this year at least 200,000 people. It's pouring in from China through Mexico and Canada, and they've got to stop it. And if they don't stop it, the tariffs are going to get worse, a lot worse.
In that car, in your other cars, there were many leaders, many of your colleagues. And I remembered that 20 years ago, on these very days, you and Jacques Chirac were traveling in the same car to an event marking the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, concentration camp. At that time, of course, nobody would have thought that 20 years later, Russia would not be invited to the same events. Now many people are discussing the fact that the largest German delegation was there. There were representatives of the countries that served Hitler. There was Zelensky, who applauds Nazis and pursues a neo-Nazi policy. What the hell is going on in Europe? Are they confused? Have they lost themselves, their historical memory?
I think it is wrong to compare the situation. Countries that, as you said, served Hitler or in general, like Germany, actually supported Hitler's rise to power and were then responsible for starting the Second World War. But that was then. German society today has nothing to do with that. Yes, of course, there is historical memory, and we must remember it, and we must not forget it. But it seems unfair to me to blame today's generation of Germans for what happened in the 1930s and 1940s. But that is my personal opinion. You can take it in different ways. I'm sure it will be treated differently. After all, I lived in Germany. I still have a lot of friends in Germany. I know how they feel about the Nazi past. By the way, the Germans themselves feel guilty and so on. But I would like to emphasize once again that neither the present generation nor future generations should be disadvantaged because of what happened under Hitler. That is the first thing. The second thing about European. The elites is a special part of the conversation. Yes, in Europe there were such outstanding political world figures as French presidents Charles de Gaulle, François Mitterrand, and more recently, Jacques Chirac in Germany, Chancellors Willy Brandt, Helmut Kohl, and Gerhard Schröder. These are people who had their own opinion and the courage to fight for their own opinion, to express it, to talk about it, and to at least try to put it into practice. Nowadays, there are practically no such people. Sometimes you are even surprised to see what is going on. Some incomprehensible people have no education and are engaged in something they have never done in their lives. From the point of view of the interests of the citizens of European countries, this is a problem. They are just political minnows. Well, God be with them. This is where all sorts of alternatives come from. And then, to fight these alternatives, European politicians try to resort to bans, as if they do not realize that if they ban it today, another alternative with a different name will appear tomorrow. When there is a public need to promote a certain political idea, there is no escaping it. How did they, European politicians, teach us in their time? Introduce a more winnable program, make people believe you, and offer solutions. But now they are thinking about what to ban and where to ban it. There is a lot of noise going on right now between European political elites and President-elect Trump. Has anything changed since Biden? Nothing has changed. Under Biden, they were happy to do whatever came from Washington. It's just that they don't like Trump. They actively fought against him, really interfered in political life, in the U.S. election process, and then got confused when Trump suddenly won. They liked Biden better mentally. And Trump has different ideas about what is good and what is bad, including gender politics and some other issues. They just don't like it. I assure you, Trump, with his character, his persistence, will put things in order there very quickly. And all of them, you'll see, it will happen quickly soon. All of them will stand at their master's feet and gently wag their tails. Everything will fall into place. And as for inviting or not inviting to events related to the liberation of Auschwitz, this is of course such a strange, shameful thing for those who did it. Why? You can feel whatever you want about Russian politics, about the head of the Russian state, about me. Nobody is asking for an invitation. But if you think about it, you could have done something much more delicate. If it is no longer possible to invite the liberators of Auschwitz because of their health and age, at least their relatives could be invited, or someone else who has something to do with them. Well, but to invite people who chose Bandera as their national hero, guilty of the Holocaust, guilty of the extermination of hundreds of thousands of Jews, Russians, and Poles, Polish. Society knows this, by the way, and from time to time reminds its political leaders who Bandera was. Today's Ukrainian leadership has elevated Bandera to the status of a national hero. He is now a symbol of Ukrainian statehood. And, as you said, the then acting head of state applauds the former SS soldiers who personally destroyed Jews with their own hands, the perpetrators of the Holocaust tragedy. This is, of course, very strange. Well, these are the realities of today in Europe we have just been talking about.